little boxes on the hillside. Little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside. Little boxes all the same. Well, there's pink ones and there's green ones. There's blue ones and there's yellow ones. And they're all made out of ticky-tacky and all look just the same. Well, the people in the houses went to a university where they were put in boxes, came out all the same. Well, there's doctors and there's lawyers and business executives, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky and all look just the same. Well, the people and drink their martinis dry, and they all are pretty children. Their children go to school, then the children go to summer camp, then to a university where they are put in boxes and come out all the same. Well, the boys go into business, marry and raise a family, in boxes made of ticky-tacky that all look just the same. Well, there's pink ones and there's green ones, there's blue ones and there's yellow. They're all made out of ticky-tacky and they all look just the same. Oh, I love that song. Just felt like playing a little tune for you before I started talking about today's book. Just stepping away from the seed book for a sec. We'll go back to it. Hi there, Hank Pink. But this is a really great book. I've learned a lot out of this book. Eaten a lot of wild edible plants that I've actually found and learned about in this book. It's just called Nature's Garden, a guide to identifying, harvesting, and preparing wild edible plants. It is by Samuel Thayer is the author, and the publisher is Foragers Harvest. And it teaches you all kinds of stuff from all different areas, and about wild food. The beginning, a lot of little stories and stuff, purpose of the book. Chart is meant to only give the reader a general idea of where this book is most applicable. Alaska's under, it's at 43%. Arizona, 61%. Idaho, Hawaii, no, Kentucky's good. Nevada, seems like the desert areas, there's not as much information about the stuff out there. Probably because there aren't nearly as many variety of plants out there. But a lot of these plants you're going to find in most states. I'm seeing a lot of 80% and up. In Wyoming, New Mexico, Montana. So there's a few states that, I mean, they probably haven't checked everywhere. Colorado's only 71, California 73, and the rest are all above 80. In Canada, Ontario it applies to, New Brunswick is about 80%, and the rest are below that. Yukon Territory, 29%. Okay, the figures represent the percentages of the plants covered by this book that are found in each state, province, or territory. Okay, talks about plant names a little bit, how it depends on what region or area you're in, you're going to get different names that people call the different plants. Um, where to forage. Yeah, I guess we could talk about starting with where you would want to start foraging, looking for your wild food. Um, it says wild food can be found nearly everywhere. I have foraged in vacant urban lots, city parks, backyards, flower beds, pastures, farmlands, gardens, swamps, seashores, marshes, bogs, fens, ponds, lakes, rivers, prairies, meadows, roadsides, gravel pits, sidewalk cracks, construction sites, lawns, fence lines, hardwood forests, mountain slopes, pine barrens, deserts, canyons, conifer forests, and even on the roofs of old buildings. Now, I have to say, I have looked in many different places myself and have found edible food just about everywhere. City sidewalk cracks, sorrel, and clover love to grow there. Um, even in the deserts, you'll find these things. Yeah, it says, while some landscapes offer better foraging than others, everyone lives near a good supply of wild food. Everyone does. It's out there, folks. You just got to find it. Okay, very wise words here. Before foraging in any area, you need to determine if you are allowed to do so. If it is private land, you will need permission. If it is public land, you need to know what foraging restrictions may be in place, because places do have those. Um, it's sad, but it's true. Here's a good one too. Um, when you go to an area to forage for wild food, kind of keep an eye on the area surrounding. Is this plant may have been sprayed with pesticides, insecticides, herbicides? Um, you want to make sure that you're getting your food source. If you're going to pick it right there and eat it, that it's coming from a clean source. You don't want to go eating something that's just been sprayed with herbicides or something like that, or even pesticides. Because believe it or not, some of those things, they kill a lot of plants, but just like humans, just like the animal kingdom, plants are resilient, and each one is different than the other. So just because the plant's the same species and you sprayed them, hey Nemo, yeah, just because you sprayed both of these plants, it doesn't mean that both of them will die. One may make it through it. They both may make it through it. I've seen it myself where people use way even over concentrated amounts of just horrible, horrible stuff. Um, sprayed it on the ground, and a week later, all the plants were still alive. It didn't. I don't know. So plants are. It depends on the soil, and it depends on a lot of different things. Okay, and I'm gonna read this part because it is very, very important, and it's something I think everybody who goes out foraging should practice. Um, the responsible gathering of wild food requires a caretaker attitude and the exercise of reasonable moderation. All foragers should be deeply concerned about the plants they collect and the ecosystem the plants come from, remembering that they are gathering from a sacred garden that belongs to all. God, that just sounds so beautiful, doesn't it? You should never harvest plants except where they are thriving, and never take more than the remaining population can easily replace. Always collect food in the way that is least disturbing to the plant and its environment. Carefully observe the area where you collect, noticing any effects you may have on the vegetation and alter your collecting practices accordingly. One can practice this stewardship only by understanding the ecology and life history of the individual plants one harvests. This is why I explore these topics with each account later in the book. However, a few general guidelines can be given. Oh, that was just beautiful. That rang so true with me. Know your plants. Know when to harvest, when it doesn't hurt them, when how leave stuff. Don't if there's 1,000 berries on the bush, you know, maybe 300 of them would be okay to take. And you don't need all 300 of them right now. It's in moderation. You want to make it so that that plant is going to keep producing offspring and keep producing berries and keep thriving in that area and growing. Um, know your plants. It's so important. I loved that whole couple paragraphs right there. Be careful that you don't take so much of the plants that next year when you come back, there is no harvest to have. There's just enough there that the plants might, you know, you don't want it in 3 or 4 years that huge giant patch of food that was growing there wild is now gone. And there is no food left because you ate it all. I mean, if you have to go walk another half mile to another patch, to get more of this thing that you love, then that's what you have to do. Don't over harvest an area. Let it naturally keep itself sustained and going. So, and I can't stand that they use this word, but I'm going to say it. They call it annual weeds. Lamb's quarters, amaranth, purslane, prickly sow, thistle, chickweed. They can be collected with little restraint. In fact, people expend a great deal of energy trying to eradicate them. These plants reproduce prolifically by seed and are usually limited only by the availability of moist, exposed soil. The greens of many weedy perennials, such as dandelions and chicory, can also be harvested with little restraint. So certain plants that are very abundant, you see them everywhere all the time. Like they said, the dandelions, things like that. Lamb's quarter, things that just grow everywhere, and people, they call it a weed. They want to try to get rid of these plants and eradicate them because there are so many of them. And I'm not going to get on people that like grass. Grass it's neat underneath your feet. It's alive. It's beautiful. There's animals that eat it, but we can't eat grass. And that just makes no sense to me, to go destroy a bunch of food naturally growing in your yard. And you can even mow the stuff. It's not like you have to let it grow and get into bushes all over the place. But it's a food source in your yard that grows wild that you don't have to take care of, right outside your front door or back door. I can't comprehend getting rid of it. Yeah. And there's more nutrition in those weeds. I'm going to say the word again. In your dandelions and your clover and your sorrels and your there's so many of them, and they're more nutritious than any of that pretty, beautiful, flowered, fruity, colorful stuff that we grow in our gardens. And the creator really, God, he had us figured out, didn't he? Like, these idiots are going to grow all this pretty crap. They're going to take all this big, colorful, you know, yeah, it's got lots of fiber and stuff like that in it, which we need. But that green stuff growing right around your house is so filled with all these vitamins and minerals that are just great for you that it's crazy that that's one of those things that they've reversed on us. Just like everything else, you know. No, 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 you don't want that stuff growing in your yard. You want grass. Because grass is pretty. You can't eat it, but we're going to cover everything we can with it so there isn't food out there where all you people live and walk around every day. And there are people that are terrified to go into a forest. It's true. Okay, then your invasive plants. Garlic mustard, kudzu, autumn olive, Japanese knotweed are typically biennials or perennials. These plants damage or alter ecosystems by displacing and outcompeting native species. Your local ecologists hope that you collect as many of them as possible. So certain plants, the invasive plants, they want you to get all of them out. They don't want them in the ecosystem because they'll take over areas. Again, this is a big alchemical thing unfolding around us, and why are they to say that all these certain plants get to live here while this one doesn't? You know? However the plant got there, the plant's there and it's living, and it's not, I don't know, it's not my place to say whether they can be there or not, at least. And then we have biennials. Your thistle, burdock, your lettuce, carrots, evening primrose, salsify, that's one of my favorites, are completely destroyed when their roots are collected, and their flowering is hampered by harvesting the flower stalks and greens. However, these plants are heavy seed producers and generally benefit from soil disturbance. The act of digging up a root creates an ideal germination and growing site for the next generation. Let half or more of the colony go to seed each year. Perennial greens, your nettle, your honewort, your dock, your milkweed, wapato, and basswood can be collected with little harm to the plant unless they are systematically picked multiple times in a season. Take less than a third of the available foliage. Milkweed, wood nettle, asparagus, carrion flower, cow parsnip, Solomon seal, your more sensitive greens. Take fewer than 1/3 of the shoots in a colony each year. Remember we talked about shoots in the other book. It'll be that little thing that comes up and has the seeds on it. Fruit, seeds, nuts, and berries are gifts from the plant, and taking them will harm it in no way. They are part of the reproductive strategy, but overharvest is usually, for all practical purposes, impossible unless the plant is already rare, in which case you should not be collecting from it anyway. Unless the plant is invasive, return its favor by spreading or planting its seeds where appropriate. So that's a good idea. So you find a a berry bush, you know, some kind of berry that you really like. Um, and you go pick a bunch of them. Now, it wouldn't be a bad idea that on your way back to wherever you're going, maybe along your trail or along a spot that looks nice to where that plant could thrive, and throw some berries down and see if nature takes its course. Um, that way, 10 years later, 5 years later, you could have another berry bush to pick from all the way along your path. I love ideas like that. Multiple underground storage organs, such as tubers and sometimes rhizomes.
Um, your Jerusalem artichoke, your toothwort, your hopnis, cattail, lotus, can be collected in moderation from healthy colonies. Okay, a lot of these things that they're talking about, rhizomes, tubers, they grow underneath the soil, and they don't so much like drop seeds. They can do it that way, but they'll spread underneath the ground. Um, I had a bunch of irises that did this, and they're all connected with a. It's like a big root, bigger than your thumb usually, a little bit thicker, but about the same length. And it grows, and the flower grows out, and then another one grows off the end of that, and another one off the end of that, and they just wow, there was probably an 8 year period where these things were laying under a bunch of wood. All right, this whole garden was to me, and it was an old man's garden that lived there in the house before that, and they just had this wood piled up all over the place. So I removed all the wood. I started cleaning stuff out, and I found these things. So I left them in the ground, thinking, "Wow, what is that?" They were everywhere. So I covered it all up with wood chips and plants like um, lily of the valley, spring lilies, tiger lilies, a bunch of different lilies, daffodils came up out of the ground, plants that had never seen the light of day in years. And then all these irises. It was like 3 feet deep and probably 40 feet wide, the whole width of the garden. And it was just irises the whole way. I have some pictures of it. I'll show you guys. I got to get those pictures together. My old gardens, man. But yeah, they were there. I didn't plant not a one, and they all spread out underneath the ground over those years. The lady next door said that they were about maybe a foot deep along the whole back of the garden, and they had grown out 2 extra feet just underneath the ground in that 10-year period while they were still covered. So it's amazing what you can find out there when you start uncovering stuff. And if you find something like that, some weird looking thing down in the soil, a bunch of them, leave them and see what grows. Okay, does foraging harm the environment? Plant identification and safe consumption. Of course, know what you're eating, folks. Make sure you know 100% what that plant is before you go and put it in your mouth and try to eat it. Um, yeah, and it goes on to a big thing about that. A big thing is go talk to people if you see somebody foraging. I mean, certain plants you'll know and they grow all over the place and they're easy to find, but there are a lot of plants that berry that you don't want to eat. We actually have some passion fruit growing right over here along the edge of this forest line right here that we found. Lookalikes. Yeah, it says the term lookalike can be misleading. Two different species of plant may look similar but not identical. The more you observe them, the more different they will appear. If you are thoroughly familiar with the plant, and any other plant will look different from it. So yes, if you know your plants well, um, clover is one of those that's very hard to mistake with any other plant. If you know clover very well and what it looks like, then you're not going to go mistake that with another plant. Say a couple bushes out here that look very similar that you've never seen before. Um, if you know the plant well, trust your senses, um, but know the plant well. The top of the leaf, the bottom of the leaf, the fruit, the flower, um, how it stems, all that kind of stuff. Okay, poisons in plants. We're going to read this one. There's some interesting information in this one. Most people believe that there is a clear dichotomy between edible and poisonous plants. This view is misleading. The two properties are not mutually exclusive. All of us eat poisonous substances on a regular basis. Rather than a dichotomy of edible and toxic, there is a continuum between two extremes. At one pole, you have potent, deadly plants such as water hemlock, while at the opposite, you have rather benign foods like the apple. However, toxicity is dosage dependent. Every food and drink has the potential to harm you if you consume too much of it. Every plant contains hundreds of chemicals. Some are useful macronutrients, sugars, starches, oils, and proteins. Some are beneficial vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, while others are toxins and anti-nutrients. Since plants can't run and hide, they defend themselves by producing toxins. One reason we have kidneys and a liver is that every food we eat contains toxic substances. The proper question is not if a substance can harm you, but how much it will take to harm you. Despite the fact that our food contains toxins, we eat things in safe portions because our bodies tell us when to stop. Cravings and revulsions keep our diets in line. Through culture, we develop norms and habits regulating the use and consumption of familiar foods. We don't serve garlic or cilantro as a main course. However, we have not developed such norms for wild foods, increasing the likelihood that somebody will overindulge and suffer the results of poisoning, which brings us to another safety guideline. Don't force yourself to eat more of any food than you find appetizing. So if in your gut it's telling you, you don't need to eat any more of this, it's just, we've had enough of it, listen to your gut. Your body will let you know when you've had enough of a certain thing. Certain plant species contain extremely potent or destructive toxins in dangerously high amounts. These should never be consumed. Such plants are unambiguously called poisonous, toxic, or deadly. Serious poisonings from wild plants are quite uncommon, and they are generally the result of neglect or from a failure to follow the guidelines set forth in this section. The majority of serious plant poisonings occur when children under 5 years old put unknown vegetation in their mouths. That's from Turner and Przewalski, 1991. Most other poisonings occur when adults put unknown vegetation in their mouth. This may be from, who do we got here? Hey, Sandra. I'm just in North Carolina right now. We're going to start, Bob and Cammie get to move in here in a few days into their new house, and we're going to get all the furniture and stuff in and all that kind of good stuff. And then I'll be heading over to Karen B's to start building her garden. I'm excited. I'm hoping it cools off a little bit more. There's a lot of chiggers there. Yeah, it's gorgeous here. I feel like I'm home. This feels like Indiana to me. A little hilly, a little more ups and downs than where I'm from, but this is what the vegetation looks like. Yeah, I tried it out there out west in a bunch of different places. Really don't want to be on the coast. I hear it's beautiful, but I don't want to live on any coastline. Yeah, I love gardening. It is, and building gardens, really, it's great. Okay, so most other poisonings occur when adults put unknown vegetation in their mouth. This may be from failure to properly identify the plant, but more often and surprisingly, it occurs when no legitimate attempt has been made to identify the plant. So they're just talking about people who go out and see, oh, there's a red berry, let's go eat it, without having any clue what the plant is. It's just ignorance, folks. That's how people get poisoned. from straight up just ignorance. Another scenario with dangerous potential is when a toxic plant is growing beside an edible one and is haphazardly collected along with it. So make sure you know what plant you're gathering your berries from each time. Just because there's a large group and there's a bunch of red berries here, if this plant, the leaves just look a little bit different on this one, but I'll pick them anyway. No, don't do that. Know every plant that you're picking from and make sure you identify every single plant that you're gathering from. Some poisonings also occur due to misinformation. So know your plants well. Again, the more you know about the plants, the less likely you are to, one, poison yourself, two, over harvest the plant so it's not going to be there next year. It's just be smart about it. So some poisonings also occur due to misinformation encountered either in person or in print. So just because it's in a book doesn't make it so. Double check, triple check. When you, like, it's so easy today. My pleasure, Baldini. Much love, brother.
Here, let me get you settled in here real quick. Sorry, folks. There we go.
Yeah, just because it's in the book. We have the Library of Alexandria at our fingertips. On that little device or whatever you're using right now to watch this, you can open up another page and look at this plant. Hey, is this plant edible? It said in this book it was, but I'll double check it. And real quick, it'll tell you, it'll give you 100 different books to go verify from, and it'll give you links and papers and all kinds of stuff on that plant. So know your plants. Before you go, I mean, like it says, a taste usually isn't going to kill you. There's some things out there you really got to know, but if you know this plant, and you just want to see what it tastes like, well, if you don't know the plant and you want to know what it tastes like, certain things, like dandelions. You've never tasted a dandelion, but we all know what dandelions look like. You know what a dandelion is. It's indistinguishable from almost every other plant. The way it is, the way it grows. We know these things. So you could go and try a dandelion if you wanted to. But just try it. Don't overindulge yourself. Trying things is okay. But sitting there and filling up on something, it's not a good idea to start. Always start in moderation with plants, especially the wild edible ones. Finally, a plant that is generally safe can sometimes cause toxic effects due to overindulgence. Like I was just saying, be careful with how much of, just because it tastes so great, don't sit there and keep eating them, especially when your body tells you not to. When your body says, hey, I'm kind of getting full, when you get that feeling, stop. You don't want to overeat a plant that you just started eating. Okay, some thoughts on wild food. Don't make it fit. This is no instant experts. Again, all this stuff takes time. Really, there's certain things to look for when identifying plants. There's a few characteristics that everybody should know. The front and back of the leaf, the differences. Whether it has the little hairs and fibers on it, that'll help tell a lot of differences. The way the leaves grow. You'll have your stem coming up like this. You'll have one leaf coming out here and another one coming out in the same spot. Those are symmetrical. And there's other ones where the leaf will be coming out here and then the next leaf will be coming out down here. And they won't be in the same spot. That's one of the big tells on knowing your plants. The fruit, the flower, of course, very important. If you come across a plant and you're not 100% sure because you didn't get to see what the flower was like, then don't eat that plant this year. Go back when the plant's going to be flowering next season and know that it's that plant for sure. If you can't identify a plant 100%, don't eat it. If this time of year, this plant and this plant, they look so similar and it's so hard to tell the difference, but in the springtime, it's much easier because of this or that or whatever, then you wait. Mark your spot, know where it is, and then go back there when you can know for 100% sure what that plant is. And again, you can taste things. There's a lot of things that are poisonous that you can taste. It's just all in good proportion. Okay, now he's just talking about stories that he's gone through. That one movie about McCandless's death, Into the Wild. This guy says it was a deliberate deception by Sean Penn. How did he die? Yada, yada, yada. We don't need to hear about all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's just a lot of them talking about the story. 1 month eating wild, going on wild diets. That'd be a pretty cool thing to do. How did we feel? Did we lose weight? Was it difficult? Okay, timing the wild harvest. This is pretty cool. Know what plants are going to be ready to harvest at what time. It shows. Okay, this is a great little. I'm just going to show you what they're showing here. Here's early spring, March through April, mid-spring, April, May, May, June, June, July, July through mid-August, August through, it covers pretty much everything, but it ends November 15th and it starts March 25th. So you have a few months in there that there aren't that much wild edible harvest out there. You can actually find things even in the wintertime, like salsify root. Salsify looks like a giant dandelion when it opens up. It's those dandelions you see that are like 3 times the height as a normal dandelion, and the ball is about like, it's bigger than your fist. The ball that has all the little seeds you can blow. Well, if you put a stick in the ground next to that thing, you can go and dig that thing up in the wintertime, and the root will be down in there. And the root is, I think they actually have a picture of it on the, well, I know there's a picture in there, but the root looks like almost like a carrot, but it's like a brownish, light color, beigeish, brownish color, and you can cut it up and put it into your, like a stew or something like that and eat it. So you can harvest some of these wild plants in the winter as long as you know where the roots are, for like dead of winter harvesting, stuff you can survive off of. But yeah, there's so many things that, now most things are in the fall, late summer and the fall, on both sides. But there are things that start popping up right away and last all the way through almost. It's amazing. So there's always wild edible food out there. You just got to know your plants. And there are actually some nice pictures. Trout lily, I've never seen a trout lily, or fawn lily, a glacier lily. Um, that's what they look like there. I'm going to go to more of the common ones. Solomon seal. It's also part of the lily family. Stop me if you guys want me to stop on one of these. False Solomon seal, Solomon's plume. These are some weird looking. The American lotus. I didn't know this, but the lotus flower produces a nut. And they're here in the center of the country down to Louisiana. From about southern Illinois down, you can find lotuses. Like your lily pad type thing. I've never tried it. Walt's eaten them. They'll roast the nut. It's a beautiful, beautiful flower, beautiful plant. Let's get to something that's more everywhere. Oh, oak trees. We can do, yeah, we'll go to something that is all over the place everywhere. Do you guys have oak trees across the pond over there? If you're still there, Sandra, do you guys have acorns? Or walnut, black walnut family. There's black walnut tree that I'm looking at right here. Okay, you guys do have acorns. Awesome. We'll go to that section. Yeah, harvesting walnuts is a pain in the butt, but it's so worth it. Okay, the acorn, part of the beech family. There is no food that means more to me than the acorn, for the acorn fulfills both a promise and a fantasy that the forest will provide for me. When I gaze across an Ozark Valley from a limestone precipice, I see more than scenery. I see thousands of acres of bounty, millions of pounds of delicious food dropped from the crowns of countless trees, waiting to be gathered up by eager hands. I see more food than I could ever eat, more than I can even fathom. A wilderness and an orchard in one. The world looks different when you eat acorns. For thousands of years, our ancestors subsisted on acorns, living as part of the ecosystem they called home. From the hills of the Fertile Crescent to the great forests of Western Europe, from the coast of Japan and Korea across the Pacific to California, from the eastern woodlands of North America to the mountains and valleys of Mexico, the acorn was once a cherished food as basic as bread. The oak provided not only the staff of life, but also wood to build homes and tools, fuel for heating and cooking, tannin for making leather, shade and shelter from the wind. It also fed much of the game that people hunted. It is no surprise that the oak was widely held sacred. Even our very language hints at the acorn's former importance. No other fruit is given a name different from that of the plant which produces it. Hmm, I don't think I've ever thought about that before. No other fruit is given a name different from that of the plant which produces it. We still speak of oaks with a tone of reverence granted to no other tree, occasionally leaving one standing where it proves inconvenient. Despite their long history as a food source for people over much of the world, acorns are widely believed to be poisonous or inedible. Even more widely, they are despised as being beneath the dignity of human beings to consume. We have no other plant food on earth subject to a prejudice of such proportion and irony. As agrarian societies conquered the lands of acorn eaters, this prejudice deserved to dehumanize their enemies. Oh, this prejudice served to dehumanize their enemies. Until the world's last acorn-based societies were vanquished by the European Americans who invaded California in the 19th century. The acorn is among the most misunderstood and misrepresented of our wild foods. I'm going to say that one more time for the cheap seats, because it's, wow. The acorn is among the most misunderstood and misrepresented of our wild foods. Ancient finds have often been misrepresented by archaeologists with strong preconceived ideas about acorns. Strangely, ethnography, archaeology, and the surviving acorn tradition seem scarcely to have affected the accounts in the popular wild food literature, which often contain vague claims, unsupported conjecture, and inaccurate generalizations. Acorns deserve better than this. The following account is based on almost 20 years of experience collecting and eating many hundreds of pounds of acorns from over 24 species across the United States, as well as extensive literary research. I hope that it can do the topic justice. So acorns, they were a huge staple in a lot of the societies at one point in time. An acorn consists of a rather large seed encapsulated by a smooth shell with no surrounding fleshy tissue. The shells are thin compared to those of most other nuts and also differ in being pliable until they are dry. All acorns terminate in a nipple-like point, and all of them are borne in tight-fitting scaly or bristly cups. These cups, also called caps, may cover only the base of the nut, or they may enclose it entirely. No other North American fruit or nuts are born in cups like these. Wow, I never noticed that. Acorns are produced by oak of the genera Quercus and Lithocarpus, the latter of which only includes one North American species, the tan oak. While it may not be a true oak, it will be discussed in this account along with the other oaks, since its acorns have been traditionally used just like acorns from the Quercus. 80 to 90 species of oak are found north of Mexico, and there are hundreds of species worldwide. Our oaks are all woody trees or shrubs. Many are long-lived forest dominants. Their growth tends to be rugged in appearance, often with large, spreading limbs. Many open-grown oaks are wider than they are tall. Wow. Oak leaves are alternate and rather tough. They vary dramatically in other characteristics. Some species have large, deeply lobed, deciduous leaves, while others have small, entire evergreen leaves. One characteristic shared by all oaks, however, is the presence of multiple lateral buds clustered around the terminal bud. Few people notice oak flowers. Appearing late in spring, just as the leaves flush, a tiny male flower grows along short, hanging strands from the previous year's growth. Huh. The female flowers, comparably minuscule, grow singly or in small clusters from leaf axils on the New Year's growth a few inches away. Though they may be green, yellow, or red, oak flowers remain inconspicuous due to their small size and lack of petals. Members of this genus in North America are often divided into two groups or subgenera. So you have your white oak or your red and black. A few oaks are intermediate between these in characteristics, and these are sometimes given their own section. The red and black oak group is endemic to the Americas, while the white oak group is found in Eurasia and Africa, as well as the New World. So they're saying okay, so the red and black are only found in the Americas, while the white oak group is found in Eurasia and Africa, as well as the New World. Okay. Let's just say America. Come on. Generally, the leaves of the red oaks have pointed lobes ending in a bristle, while those of white oaks have rounded lobes lacking bristle tips. However, some exceptions occur, and this criterion obviously does not work for many oak species that do not have lobed leaves. Members of the white oak group also tend to have lighter colored, softer, looser bark. The acorns of the two groups are also quite different. This will be discussed in detail later. The different sizes of acorns. We have from 0.9 grams all the way up to 39.7 grams. Wow, that's a big, wow. Okay, then it goes into white oak groups and red oak groups and this and that and yada yada yada. We're not going to go through all the different type of oaks, but we are going to learn about cleaning your acorns. And that's amazing. It's called an acorn from an oak tree. You have a walnut from a walnut tree. You have a pecan from a pecan tree. But this is an oak tree and it makes an acorn. I've never thought that thought before. Wow. Which acorns are best? The myth of the sweet acorn. Oh, we got to learn about the tannin.
Whoa, what was that thing? Wow. Whatever that was, it looked like the size of a hummingbird. Okay. If you pick an acorn and eat it, you will most likely find it bitter, astringent, and inedible. Although these nuts have served as a staple food for thousands of years, they were and generally are eaten
only after leaching to remove their bitterness. Tannin is what makes acorns and many other plant foods bitter. It is found in some quantity in nearly all plant material. It makes apples tart, chokecherries, puckery, and coffee and tea bitter. Tannin is an everyday part of the human diet, and consumption of small amounts is not only safe, but probably beneficial due to tannin's action as an antioxidant. Tannin is also considered a mild toxin because in large amounts it can damage the mucous membranes of the digestive system. It is also classed as an anti-nutrient because it interferes with the body's absorption and utilization of minerals and proteins. So for these reasons, consumption of tannin must be limited. Tannin is not a specific chemical. It is a group of many similar chemicals. Tannins are a large molecule organic acid which binds to dissolved proteins. They are hydrolyzable, water-soluble, and non-hydrolyzable. Oh, there are water-soluble and non-water-soluble tannins. When you eat or drink something with dissolved tannin, the tannin binds with the proteins on the surface membrane, which causes the cells to contract and the tissues to tighten. This process and feeling is called astringency, a characteristic of all tannins. Tannins also chelate free mineral ions such as calcium, phosphorus, potassium, and magnesium. Okay, so once they're chelated by the tannin, these minerals are unavailable to the body and pass from the system unused. Wow, so you really don't want a whole lot of that tannin in you. So this guy says there's a myth about a sweet acorn. I've been told over and over again about this or that species of oak with sweet acorns that can be eaten directly from the tree without being leached. Indeed, you can enjoy a few acorns from some trees, but after that your mouth begins to pucker and the nuts seem more and more bitter. Grind and boil these same sweet acorns into porridge and you probably wouldn't get past a few bites. Use them for flour and you can bake the bread that nobody likes. But a nut or two is pretty good, especially on a long hike. Acorns have a magical way of raising our hopes like this. The sweet acorn, the acorn that doesn't need to be leached, is the holy grail of wild food. Such acorns may be native to Israel or Portugal, but not here. Dream of these tannin-free acorns if you wish, hope if you like, but don't waste your time looking for them. No acorn myth has bred more disillusionment. Okay, he talks about one of the times where he went and tried to find it and yada yada yada. Okay, it is commonly stated that white acorns are low in tannin and red acorns are high. This statement is much simpler than the truth and is not supported by chemical analyses. A much more reasonable statement is that both groups have tannin levels ranging from low to high, with tannin content of red acorns averaging somewhat higher. Looking at the tannin chart, you can see that there is great variability within both groups and within species. Okay. Harvest. Depending on the species and location, acorns ripen from late summer through fall. The mature acorn is eventually dropped by the tree, but it may be held for several weeks after ripening. Acorns remaining on the tree can be identified as ripe if they will detach easily from their caps. You can pluck acorns directly from the twigs, but this method is consuming. It is much more effective to use a heavy stick thrown forcefully into the limbs to loosen the acorns. That's not nice. You can also get the acorns down by climbing the tree and shaking the branches. If the crop is heavy, it is most effective to collect acorns after they have fallen of their own accord. Even at a leisurely pace, I can fill a 5-gallon bucket with medium-sized acorns under a typical tree in about an hour. Under ideal conditions, I have gathered 5 gallons in 10 minutes. Wow. When collecting, you'll greatly increase your speed if you toss the acorns into a shallow open container, like a small wash basin, rather than directly into a tall bucket or gunny sack. Okay, 5 gallons of fresh acorns produce 12 to 18 pounds of dried, shelled nut meat, or about 8 calorie days for an average person. Wow. So a 5-gallon bucket is about a week's worth of calories. Because acorns store very well and the crop is extremely variable from one year to the next, it makes sense to gather a lot of them in good years. Anybody with an oak tree in the yard or who pays any attention in the woods knows that acorn crop varies dramatically from year to year. That's true. And it just talks about how much. Okay, acorn weevils and grubs. If you gather a bucket full of acorns and let it sit for a few days, you'll find that many of the nuts develop holes in their shells. On the bottom of the pail, there will be a surprising number of short, light-colored, legless grubs. These are larvae of acorn weevils, and they are the bane of balanophages everywhere. In the eyes of many, these worms or grubs are the most frustrating part of using acorns. In some years, these insects destroy the majority of the crop. Ugh. Some of these weevils feed exclusively on acorns, while others also attack hazel, chestnut, and other nut species. Okay, I don't want to read about how they get in. Separating good from the bad during collection. Weevils eat every kind of acorn. If you feel like you have observed otherwise, it is only coincidence. You notice you mentioned floating acorns. Okay. Traditional Miwok acorn collection. Um, you will notice no mention of floating acorns to identify the bad ones, or of roasting them to kill the grubs. Instead, they simply picks up the good ones and leaves the bad ones. Yes, it is that simple, and it is possible to tell. Infected acorns exhibit visible clues or defects indicating that they contain weevil larvae. Once you learn to read these clues, you will be able to spot bad acorns instantly. After some practice, acorn inspection will be an automatic part of collecting. Okay, defects. Okay, the attached cups. This is an easily observed and reliable indicator of worthlessness. Ripe acorns loosen from their cup unless they are infected. When an oak senses that an acorn is infected, it ceases to invest energy in ripening it and aborts it. The acorn and attached cup are dropped before the process of separating two bonded parts takes place. If you pry the acorn out of the cup and look at the disc, it will almost certainly exhibit one or more of the disc defects listed below. Okay, note that this defect is listed as attached cup. An acorn isn't bad simply because it is resting in or enclosed by its cup. If the two parts fall away from each other with little or no force, a gentle touch of the fingertip or less, the acorn may still be sound. However, if they must be pried or pulled apart, they are attached. On species such as burr and overcup oak, which have cups that largely or fully enclose the acorn, this can be hard to tell, although often you can still get the nut to move easily within its enclosing cup, indicating that it's not attached. Okay, an exit hole. A no-brainer. Although a grub hole in the dark acorn can easily escape the attention of a speedy collector, exit holes are about the size of a pencil lead. So if you see a little hole in your acorn at all, it means that there was a grub in there and it came out of it. You don't want that acorn. And it also says a dying white sprout. When you see the, get it in focus there, come on. It's not going to do it. Well, right here, there's a little white part growing out of the acorn. And then now the edge is dying. That means no good, no bueno. An old acorn. Acorns from the previous autumn are dull brown or gray and have lost any attractive color they may have had. When in doubt, crack them. They will not have any good meat inside. Dark crud. Dark zones. Sometimes the shell of that acorn exhibits a dark area. These seem to be caused by bacterial infections of the nut meat where a weevil has probed a hole, or where a grub has eaten part of the inside. Dark zones may be rather small, or they may encompass as much as a third of the shell. If you crack the nut open, you will usually see the dark zone corresponding to obvious spoilage inside the acorn. Shell or disc separation. Normally the shell of the acorn is bonded neatly to the disc. The disc is the little part that's connected to the nut and the shell. Shell separation is when the shell is peeled away from the disc at one or more points, resulting in a free edge. Okay, a disc separation occurs when the pressure inside the acorn pushes the disc away from the shell, or when it was pulled out of the cup to which it was attached. In either case, the normal bond between the disc and the shell is interrupted. So they're talking about this right here. At the top of, man, it will not. You have your nut right here, and then there's a little part that was connected to the plant. If it's pulled up, that whole disc is like pulled out of it a little bit, or even has a hole, then it's probably not good. A rippled bottom. The bottom part of the acorn shell just outside of the disc is often slightly ripped. Or rippled, but the extreme or exaggerated ripple typically indicates a bad acorn. Okay, again, dark spots. Wow, and some of these weevil holes are teeny tiny, folks. So it's really, at first you go out, you're going to be cracking a lot of nuts. Hey, I'm not sure about this one. Crack, open it up, see what it looks like. And in time, you'll get an eye for it. The bulging or sunken disc, dying sprout. Yeah, the beginning of it'll start cracking through. The acorn will crack open and you'll see this white part outgrowing. If that doesn't want to turn into a plant, and they do real easily, I used to have to pick them all the time out of my garden. If the sprout is dying, then leave the acorn behind. Wow, I forgot all about this. A $10,000 won from the Bank of Korea. Some guy, I gave him some clothes and stuff like that, and some tools. It's on my first stop when I started my walkabout. Wow, that takes me back. It looks real. But he wanted, he didn't want to just take stuff, he wanted to trade. So we traded. The float test. Good fresh acorns are heavier than water. What? How long we've been doing this for over an hour. Okay, guys. I think I'm gonna end it there. I think Hank wants to do some business, but we're gonna come back to this book before we get back into the seeds. I'm still having a lot of fun with the seeds, but yeah, I thought this was kind of prevalent as well, knowing your wild food, and especially this acorn part. We're going to go through the acorn thing extensively, and it even gets in how to get them ready, how to cook them, how to clean them, removing the skins, all that kind of stuff, the stuff you really need, the leaching part, and then you can make acorn bread. You can store this stuff like wheat, and you can make bread out of acorns. So all that food out there, all those plants, all those acorn trees, all that stuff is edible. And I'd really like to share that with you guys, because I don't know, we'll see what happens, but I think it'll be some valuable information, to be able to go out there and grab 5-gallon bucket of acorns off the ground, and you could feed yourself for a week, at least get all the calories you need from just that. Oh, no worries, Kelly. Yeah, just going over a different book, Nature's Garden, Edible Wild Plants. Had this one for a while. Only $25 it was, and filled with good information. Samuel Thayer, again, Forager's Harvest Publishing. Check it out, really cool book. Yeah, it's got over 400 color photos to show you, exactly what you're looking for. The poisonous ones, or even marked, ones that look similar. Yeah, really neat. There's a lot of different plants in here, but the ones I'm gonna pull out of here are gonna be the ones that you can find everywhere. They're more abundant in all different places. So, yeah, that's it for today, folks. Remember, know your plants. Get to know them. Even the wild, especially the wild ones. The ones you have grown in your garden, you can eat. But just there's certain things that plants look very much alike, but they can have just one characteristic that makes them totally different. And knowing that could, thank you, Nick. Much love, brother. I will, yeah, this is stuff that, we all can apply. Never have to, but it's that kind of knowledge that will get you through the day, so you can see tomorrow. And yeah, it's important stuff to me. I wanted to be able to, hey, Dawn,
How we doing, darling? I wanted to be able to go out into these woods, something like this, and survive. That was my goal back in 2011. I started down this path of, you know, comprehending the world around me in such a way that I didn't fear what, the human society part was doing. I think I have enough knowledge right now to at least go out there and survive. I don't want to say live happily because there's so much more knowledge I need to gather. Um, but that's what my little library of books is for. I mean, I could definitely go out there and find enough sustenance to eat, but I want to go out there and, over time gather all these things to where I have this, where you break it down alchemically and you gather the oils and the salts and you get all these different flavors and fragrances and all these different things, and then you apply them to kind of what you're eating. Like when I add this bit of this type of salt from this plant while I'm cooking, it gives me this flavor. I mean, all that stuff's out there. There's salt in everything out there. There's oil in everything out there. There's alcohol in everything out there. Yes, Nick, real science. Alchemy. All this stuff is out there. All these different flavors and fragrances, and they're at our fingertips. They're just right out there. And it's not, mason jars. I have my alchemical distiller now and my cold water condenser. You don't have to have those things. I started out doing this stuff in mason jars with Everclear. You can use grain alcohol, straight grain alcohol, as long as it's potable. And you can make your medicine. You can make the different flavorings for your foods. That's when I'll be, happy about my knowledge. Right now, I could go out there and survive. I could go out there and get enough sustenance and create a little shelter and keep myself warm and all the things I need to do. I know how to do that. But I really want to be able to live, like I have, it's the grocery store pretty much. But it's just, you don't go and buy it, you have to go and make it. And one day I hope to have all that knowledge. That's your pharmacy, that's your grocery store. That's everything you need is right there. And we've just been domesticated, really. So many ways. But we're getting back, aren't we? Let's not dwell on what happened. Let's look forward to what we're doing. But thank you all for your kind words. I love y'all. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go take Hank for a cruise. We're going to go check out the mushrooms. Stuff like that. Get to know the place a little bit better. Only here for about another 4 or 5 days. And then we'll be heading down to South Carolina. But yeah, this is wonderful here. I really love it. I feel like I'm getting close to home. I really am. I feel safe here. Out in the desert, it's like, where's the water? Where's the food? But here, it's abundant everywhere you look. And it just puts me at ease. It really does. So go say hi to a plant today. Go hug a tree.
Give a bush a high five as you're walking by, maybe. Make that contact with that good intention. And yeah, change the world one step at a time, folks. I love you. I'm going to get out of here. I know I keep saying it. Y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me. This is Good Times for All here signing out. As always, thanks for watching.